I always talk about these three words that I'll throw out there now called optimize, personalize, and socialize. Okay. So
Nice.
first and foremost, we have to optimize our LinkedIn profile pages and our setup on LinkedIn. And then you need to personalize. So you need to develop a connection strategy, know who your customer avatar is or who your audience is. And then you need to personalize that strategy. And what I mean by that is I want you to be sending out a personalised connection request to Joe Blogs, who you aren't connected to, saying, Dear Joe Blogs, calling him by his name, being upfront and authentic with why you're actually connecting him with him. I do X, Y, Z at such and such. These are the types of services we provide. I'd really welcome the opportunity to connect with you.
Hi, I'm Jane Hilsden, marketing consultant and founder of Dragonfly Marketing and author of How to Do Marketing, a comprehensive guide to small businesses. Welcome to another episode of the How to Do Marketing show. Now, in my opinion, LinkedIn is one of the most underutilised social media channels for small businesses. There are so many misconceptions around what LinkedIn is actually for, and maybe some confusion as to how it's actually supposed to be used as a marketing tool. But if you are a business to business or a B2B who wants to increase the visibility of you and your team, position your team as experts, build connections beyond your immediate network, then I think you should listen to what Lucy Bingle has to say in this episode. So Lucy Bingle is a LinkedIn marketing strategist. She provides expert LinkedIn consulting services and LinkedIn marketing to businesses across all industries all around the world. She believes that LinkedIn is the perfect platform for individuals and brands to position themselves and connect with their target audience. In this interview with Luce, we'll hear how businesses with a clever LinkedIn strategy can share their stories, company culture, track record, and industry insights, resulting in the generation of real commercial opportunities. Enjoy. Lucy, you are a trained marketer. Before you started your business, Lucy Bingle LinkedIn Marketing, you were a marketing manager at an executive search firm. So tell us why the move to specialising in LinkedIn marketing?
The simple answer is that having always worn a marketing hat, I ended up at that executive search firm obviously rolling out traditional and digital marketing strategies. But one of the jobs that fell into my bucket was training 60 plus consultants on how to use LinkedIn. Now, admittedly, they were using it to find C-suite executives and to place those guys in roles. But I knew as a marketer that the first thing that they would then go and do was build a team, and they would then go back out to market looking for a service provider. So I used to think to myself, well, wouldn't we be marketing to these C-suite executives prior to them even landing these roles, so that when they go to make those commercial decisions, they would actually use us or hire our business?
Yeah.
And then I used to think, well, why would this? So as a result of that thought process, we actually started, or I did, I put into place some strategies on LinkedIn demonstrating expertise, area of specialisation, talking about our corporate culture, our people. And sure enough, A, we built brand awareness, but B, we actually picked up lots of mandates from actually doing that. So people just hearing more about us, knowing more about us, and feeling more aligned to our core values, etc. So then I started thinking, well, why would this be constrained to recruitment only? Why aren't all businesses actually developing and implementing LinkedIn strategies where they're showcasing their talent and their expertise and really building brand awareness on this platform, which has over 665 million members? And so then I saw an opportunity and I put my own exit strategy into play.
Nice. Excellent. So how long have you had your business? When did you start the business?
Years ago.
Yes. Some years ago. Excellent. And that's interesting because, I think that's, I don't know, I wasn't there in the early days of LinkedIn, but from my experience, it certainly, the seed of LinkedIn started in that recruitment space, in terms of this was a way for people to connect with each other for job opportunities. And I think there's a certain stigma or a perception that that's where, particularly with some of the people that I've dealt with in regional areas, there seems to be that stigma that's what it still is for, like that's what it's about. And I think it's probably got a lot to do with the fact that you actually fill out essentially what is a resume which is your profile. But obviously there's other parts of your LinkedIn profile that you fill in other than your job history. So what other opportunities, just talk us through, I mean, obviously you've just gone through a classic example there, but say for small businesses that aren't in that recruitment space or that executive search, what other opportunities lie on the LinkedIn platform?
Okay, so I think the first thing that I would challenge your thought process there and say, so I signed up to LinkedIn 11 years ago, so I was actually an early adopter. Yeah. And yes, it was very much a place that you held your CV, etc. But where I want people to change their mindset around LinkedIn is, rather than thinking of it as a place to put your CV, to think of it as a capability statement. That is current and evolving, because you own your profile page for the trajectory of your career. So therefore, it should be a living document, really, that really highlights everything that you're doing today and changes with where you're at and where your business is at and what role you may have within that business. So that's one thought process I just want to highlight and make you think about. Great. But in terms of opportunity for businesses, rather than thinking of LinkedIn as a recruitment or a sourcing platform, think of it as a marketing solutions platform. So therefore, your people need to have their profiles, which I call capability statements, all singing or dancing, looking best in class, because they are representing your brand and your business. And then you have the opportunity to have a vibrant and dynamic company page, which is effectively a microsite of your website, which should be sharing stories about your people. It should be also sharing your business announcements. It should be demonstrating your expertise, your area of specialisation, whether that be done by case studies, white papers, insights, whatever that might be. And it should also be talking about the values of the business. So actually showing your corporate social responsibility or community activity, or even celebrating the successes of your people and reward and recognition.
Yeah. And so just to go back a step there, so there's two profiles essentially that you can be building as a small business on LinkedIn. So as Lou said, there's the personal profiles, which, you as a business owner can have your personal profile, and then other staff and other team members can have their personal profiles that also say that they work for your business. But then there's like a business page, which is if people are familiar with how Facebook works, it's a little bit similar to that. You can actually have a business page set up that, as Lou said, it's like a little micro website, and it has all your kind of main details, but it can also list all your employees, and that's one thing that I think for some businesses, they might have noticed that, and they might have set up their business page and filled in all the blanks. And then they've got their, personal profile, and they've filled in all the blanks, and they've got that up and going. But because I see sometimes some businesses kind of fill out those company pages with all the website details, for example, but then don't actually post anything out via those business pages. And then there's a hell of a lot of people that aren't actually posting anything out via their personal profiles as well. What's the difference between the two? And is there one or the other that people should, pay more attention to or focus on building? Because I imagine both of them would take a lot of effort to build.
Yeah, look, I think, yes, they can take a lot of effort. But like with anything, if you put a strategy in play and you put some rhythm in your marketing and know each week what you're going to do, that will also make it more manageable. Okay, so if you are a standalone consultant listening to this, I would recommend doing your activity via your profile page and just have the company page still completed, still like a landing page that can drive traffic to the website, but don't put your energy there. But if you were a small business of, say, up to 10 people, I would recommend having a vibrant and dynamic company page. Now, if you are already sharing content elsewhere, so other social channels or on your blog or whatever, you could be repurposing that for the company page and just tweaking the commentary according to that audience. In terms of expectation from the personal profile page perspective, individuals should be engaging with what is going on in their feed on LinkedIn, because remember, sorry, I know I'm going around this roundabout way, but LinkedIn is like any other social platform. It is social. It is a social professional platform. So you need to give some love to get some love. So if you want to build brand awareness around your own personal professional profile, you need to be active. So therefore, my expectations are that people engage with their feed, so engage with what their network is doing. And I don't mean just liking it, because that doesn't cut it anymore. We've all got social fatigue. We're done with it. So it's about finding your voice and actually commenting and sharing insights. So, and also celebrating the successes of others. So that could be, if you're going to be clever, celebrating the successes of what your clients are up to, their content, engaging with that content, what prospects are up to and engaging with their content, and then also others. So, you know, influencers or just your general network that you have. It's really important to give back, because what will happen is, as you get active, people will start to engage with your content as well. And therefore that will bring eyeballs across your professional brand, which is representing the corporate brand or your business brand, which just by default brings eyeballs across your business and becomes better knowing. And getting back to, you know, the purpose of this, it's about building brand awareness. It's about demonstrating expertise. And ultimately the holy grail is to, you know, basically generate leads and sales. Yeah, absolutely. So do you recommend that people within businesses, so employees, business leaders, both, I guess, contribute in that way via their personal profile? Or do you think that they, you know, if they've got that group of 10 people and they've got the business page, is it important to contribute in that fashion from your business page, or both? Both. So foremost, you need to designate an owner of the company page. Super important. It needs to be a resource aligned to that company page. That company page needs to be communicating 2 to 3 times a week, okay? Then all individuals within that business need to, at minimum, be engaging with the brand content, so those company page posts. They can do that with their eyes closed, because the company page posts are on message, they're on brand, they're validating exactly what you guys do. So that's the easiest thing you can do. And if those company page posts are around events or projects or successes and wins, don't just like them, comment on them. And if you are the business owner, you have to start finding that voice and commenting and celebrating the wins of your people, your staff. They will love you for it. They will also engage with that company page post, and then their network will also engage. So all of a sudden this amplifier effect happens through the starting and, you know, the starting of conversation on these company page posts. Okay, so individuals first and foremost need to engage with the company page posts, but then they need to engage with what's going on in their feed. And then the next step, there is a third step that I always, and if you can do this, this will really set you apart. But once a week, if individuals and especially business leaders actually share a status update or start a post and share a high quality piece of content which is wrapped in smart commentary, tagging authors, individuals and organisations, that will really further set them apart and amplify the brand. So I'm not going to recommend that people tag Seth Godin and Graham Robertson, because I think Seth Godin hates it when you do that. But an example of that is I didn't even share a post, I didn't share an article. I literally just posted, it was almost like a book club post where I just wanted to recommend my 2 marketing Bibles, which one happens to be Seth
Seth Godin's This Is Marketing, and the other one is a book by a guy called Graham Robertson, who does a lot of work in branding. Anyway, so I described why, I had a picture of me holding the books, and I described why these books meant so much to me and how much I referenced them, but I tagged Graham Robertson and I tagged Seth Godin in. That post went ballistic, and it went ballistic from people that weren't in my network. And I was like, where are all these people coming from? And I was getting connection opportunities, and some of them were rubbish, granted. They were the spammers on LinkedIn, the pain in the ass pesterers, as I will refer to them later on. But some of them were actually genuine connections in that space. And I thought, obviously, because I've tagged Seth Godin in here, because I didn't hashtag him, I actually tagged him. Do you think that's why I received that feedback, because I had tagged them in?
Yeah, probably. And I would also imagine, I think there were a couple of things that played in your favour. You probably actually wrote something insightful that actually resonated and made sense and demonstrated that you actually had something important to say. You know what I mean? Like, it sort of set you apart. You've tagged the right people. You may have also included a couple of hashtags, which made that post findable, and that also means that it would have been findable by others outside your network. So there would have been a couple of contributing factors, and that's best practice for sharing a post. So I mean, an example I have that's quite similar to that is that Lego did an awesome, and this was a couple of years ago, Lego did an awesome storyboarding around, I don't know, creativity and leadership and and it was an article that had been written by the CMO, or the Chief Marketing Officer of Lego, and it was really clever, and it really showcased all the wonderful things about Lego and how innovative and creative it is. Anyway, I shared this article, I tagged the CMO, and I sort of wrote my points around, the connectivity between creativity and innovation and marketing and and I put some hashtags on it, and sure enough, the guy, the CMO based out of Europe, responds in my post. He doesn't know little old Lucy Bingle, but agreeing with me, telling me, yes, hats off, that's really great. Then all of a sudden his whole network is exposed to that post. I all of a sudden had other people chiming in and saying other stuff, and it was fabulous for me, my brand.
That's probably it. It's Graham Robertson got back and replied. That was probably the difference.
That's it. And that pushed it into his network.
I see. Yes. Oh, that's a really good example. So you're thinking once a week.
Once a week,
do that best practice post where you're tagging an author in, you're sharing somebody else's article, you're giving that smart commentary, and you're using some hashtags to support that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I say in all my training, I always say, I have this little program called LinkedIn for Breakfast, and I am not on those webinars or in those training sessions trying to create new day jobs for people. This is not what I'm about. I'm about how can you leverage a platform effectively and in the best possible way without it completely becoming cumbersome. And my expectation for all individuals is that 3 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes, they spend time on LinkedIn. And they do a couple of things. They build out their valuable network, which I call a connection strategy, and they invest time and energy into finding the right people to put in their bucket. They then engage with their network's activity, and then they also engage with the content or the company page posts. And then once a week, they do this best-in-class status update or post where they find a really quality piece of content, which they wrap in smart commentary, as I said, tag individuals, companies, publications, and add some hashtags. And honest to God, if you could do your LinkedIn for Breakfast, and this is it really, if you implemented that today and you did that for 8 weeks and you wrote down today how many people you're connected to, and you looked at it again in 8 weeks' time, you would be blown away by the difference in your brand awareness for both your corporate brand but also your own personal professional brand.
Well, there's the challenge, people. 8 weeks. I love it. Okay. So another misconception, Luce, that I find a lot of people saying is, but LinkedIn's just for business to business people, for people who are in that kind of business to business or B2B space. Do you have any opinions as to whether you think it's more effective for someone that works within that business to business space? So in that context, I mean that they're a business owner whose customer is another business owner, or do you think it's worthwhile for any small business person to use LinkedIn as part of their marketing mix?
Okay, so I think that success is probably more apparent for B2B businesses, just in terms of the majority of professionals or businesses present on LinkedIn would be in the B2B space.
Yes.
Saying that, I am seeing a rise of B2C businesses being present on LinkedIn. And saying all of that, remembering the buyer's journey, right? So say you met with me 3-4 weeks ago when we were allowed to be outside and do normal things. We would have gone and had coffee and we would have exchanged business cards, and you may have or may not have lost my business card. And the first thing you would then go and do is you'd probably go back to your desk and think, I might just look that Lucy Bingle up again and just do a bit of proofing on whether she does do what she said she did in the meeting and blah, blah, blah. And you would put into Google Lucy Bingle. And even though my website is lucybingle.com,
the
first thing that appears in Google for me and every person that listens to this podcast is your LinkedIn profile page. Yes. So right there is the reason why everybody needs to have a best-in-class LinkedIn profile page. Because that is your first port of call or your first proof point on somebody and somebody's business. So I think everybody needs to have a best-in-class profile page and a holding page for their company, whether they're B2B or B2C, because you just don't know how your customer is going to find you.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, that's a good answer. Now, biggest mistakes. What are some of the classic mistakes that you have come across, Luce? I'm sure there's a few.
So, okay, the visual ones. Okay, I don't want to see crappy wedding photos, party photos as your headshots, or photos of you with your baby, or photos of you with your dog, even though I know I shared a post yesterday about me with the dog, but I'm talking about on your profile page.
In your thumbnail,
In your thumbnail. Okay, I want to see a decent headshot. Other clangers that I see often is people engaging on LinkedIn, which I'm all for, but engaging in the wrong way. So, i.e., being inflammatory, political, sharing silly memes, just doing themselves a disservice reputation-wise. You don't need to be doing that, okay? So, use common sense and get away from that. And the other thing I would say is where people are actually posting content, but you can actually tell they haven't read the content they're posting. So they're just, by virtue of feeling like they need to be doing something, they will be grabbing an article and just sharing it and putting a top line statement around it. And yet, if you actually click into those articles, often they've got nothing to do with what that person has written. And again, it's all about managing your own reputation, really.
That's
isn't
right.
It? So, just remember that this is effectively your professional footprint, and therefore you need to manage it and respect it and make sure that you're putting your best brand forward. And so be professional, I mean, it sounds so common sense and so simple, but it's the truth. And so, I mean, they're my big things. Is, you've got the opportunity. The opportunity is so great for everyone. It's a free platform, first and foremost. I mean, honestly, there you go. I mean, a free marketing channel.
Yeah.
And everybody, whether you are Microsoft or you're a corporation of one, you've got a level playing field with the same tool that you can make, do or be whatever you want it to be. You know what I mean? So, we're all playing with the same thing. So that is an amazing opportunity. So you should be making sure that your profile pages stand out, that they look great, that they represent you properly and in the best possible way. So make sure your headshot's decent, make sure you've got a good background image, make sure you're clear about what you do and articulate what you do, today with your expertise, track record, skill set, etc. And then when you're sharing content, do it intelligently. Make sure it's in line with what you know, and that you've actually read it and you've proofread your content and you haven't got grammar mistakes and spelling mistakes, because again, it's so quick to ruin your own personal reputation, and you don't need to.
Yeah. And to be honest, those mistakes are pretty easy to avoid. One thing that I find when I talk to my clients and trying to encourage them to get on LinkedIn and use it is, I think, and not that they say this, but this is what I kind of have come to the conclusion of, there's a lot of fear around posting stuff on LinkedIn because they are worried about that. They are worried about doing the wrong thing and their reputation, their professional reputation being tarnished. But, from what Luce has just said there, those mistakes are pretty easy to avoid. A really bad photo or, sharing an article that's not appropriate or whatever, that's pretty easy to avoid. I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of people having that kind of nervousness, but don't let that fear stop you from actually contributing in the first place. It's hard to go wrong, I guess what I'm saying.
I think you're absolutely right, Jane. And I think that is the opportunity. And then the other thing that is so important to impress upon everyone listening to this is that LinkedIn marketing is still a really new way to market. So if you can get in there and have a crack and do it well, you will set yourself apart from your competition, because I guarantee you most people aren't doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So another thing that a lot of people have a hesitation or a challenge with LinkedIn is, and these are the people that have probably set up their profile, they don't actually have a lot to do with it. So LinkedIn are probably, messaging them, how they'll send those notifications to your email, trying to get you to come on and use the platform. Such and such has just updated this, or such and such is doing this. And so they'll click in. And then what they notice is just they have this abundance of really annoying pain in the ass pesterers, I call them, who've just bombarded their connection requests, as well as, who are trying to sell to them via direct message. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a bad experience for people that either turns them off the network altogether. But I think what it also does is make people think that they don't actually want to go and outreach to someone that they don't know, because they don't want, the fear is that they'll be seen as one of these pain in the ass pesterers, but LinkedIn has that, you spoke about a connection strategy before. You kind of do want to reach out to people that you don't know. How do you kind of differentiate yourself from those spammers to someone who is genuinely outreaching to make a what could be quite a fruitful connection?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that needs to be mentioned there is we don't sell on LinkedIn. I don't want you to sell. I don't want you to direct sell. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about here. People that are hitting you up with stuff, when you get that connection request and then 2 seconds later, it's like, thanks so much, Lucy. I've got this, I've got that. Will you buy this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's a complete turn off. Yeah. So unfortunately, I can't, there's no workaround to get rid of the, what did you call them?
Pain in the ass pesterers.
Pain in the ass pesterers.
That's my technical term, Luce.
It's very good.
A lot of thought went into that.
We need, the peanut. We need to come up with an. Anyway, so the simple thing to do there is just ignore. Don't accept. Just click on the ignore, and you'll start to flush them out anyway. Then, in terms of how do you then put into play a decent connection strategy that isn't going to annoy everybody, is I always talk about these 3 words that I'll throw out there now called optimize, personalize, and socialize. Okay. So nice. First and foremost, we have to optimize our LinkedIn profile pages and our setup on LinkedIn. And then you need to personalize. So you need to develop a connection strategy, know who your customer avatar is or who your audience is. And then you need to personalize that strategy. And what I mean by that is I want you to be sending out a personalised connection request to Joe Blogs, who you aren't connected to, saying, you know, dear Joe Blogs, calling him by his name, being upfront and authentic with why you're actually connecting in with him. I do X, Y, Z at such and such. These are the types of services we provide. I'd really welcome the opportunity to connect with you. Joe Blogs is delighted. You've called him by his name. You've been really authentic and genuine with why you're actually reaching out. And that's it. Boom. You know, nothing else. And that's how you're going to set yourself apart. You're not trying to sell to him. You're just literally reaching out and being plain and simple with why you're connecting, and he's actually okay with that.
Right.
Yeah. And then once you build that body of people out, you then need to put into play the socialize, which is what I talked about before, actually engaging on the platform, you know, doing effective LinkedIn marketing, where you're by default educating this great group of people more and more about you and what you do and your expertise and what value you add in the world, and, you know, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then is that, so you reach out to them and introduce yourself just like you would at a networking event, face to face. Hi, I'm such and such, you know, blah, this is what I do, love to connect. And then you connect with them a little bit more through the news feed. And then do you reach out to them again via message, or only if there's a specific need? Like, is that where it ends? Or
no? Well, look, obviously everyone has different ways. So my suggestions there, and what I recommend to people to do, is after 10 days, you gather, when you've got some time on your side and a bit of breathing space, you look at all the recent people that have connected in with you, and you have saved on your desktop a long form message, okay? So it'll say something like, dear Joe Blogs, I just want to take time to say thanks for connecting on LinkedIn. I thought I would also educate you further about our business. If you ever need anything, please get in touch. You don't hit them up for anything. You're literally just educating them. Joe Blogs, therefore, has been touched a couple of times. He's had the short form message where you've sent that personalised connection request. Then 10 days later, or whenever it is, you've sent him a long form message. So by the time you're at an event, or if you've got an opportunity to pick up the phone and talk to Joe Blogs, he actually feels like he knows you, and he knows something about you. Half the time they don't really kind of remember why they know you or where it's from. But it's a much softer conversation, and so that is our recommendation.
Yeah. Awesome. And one question, because obviously there's a few paid versions of LinkedIn. There's LinkedIn Premium, which I experimented with for a little while. And then there's Sales Navigator, which I haven't experimented with. I have no idea about that. Have you used those? Do you use them? Would you recommend using them?
I have used them. I don't have them. My team don't have them. I'm a firm believer in that if you learn to drive around LinkedIn well, you don't need the upgraded accounts.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's so much functionality in there. You know, sure, if you're a recruiter or a salesperson or a business development manager, you know, I can see reasons why you might, depending on what industry you're in. But honest to God, if you learn how to drive this thing like a Ferrari, there is so much you can actually be doing. I mean, I built a whole business and I'm on a free version of LinkedIn.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that answers that perfectly. Absolutely. Okay, cool. Now, can you share a case study, or do you have a case study or an example about how a business has had a significant positive impact by introducing LinkedIn into their marketing or their business development? So it might have been someone that, you know, didn't know much about it or had some challenges with using it, started using it and had some success?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, well, of course I'm going to say this, but it is the truth. Every day of the week we work with organisations, whether they be small business, SMEs or large corporates, and when they put the LinkedIn strategies into play, they always see benefits in different ways. So with small business, I would say a good example is we worked for a couple of years with a fit-out business here in Sydney, and they were small. They have basically trebled in size, I'd say, in 18 months, and the owner of that business has rung me multiple times to thank me, to say that it is all attributed to LinkedIn. And I know the reasons for that is that we started sharing. So remembering he's a fit out firm, so they go into, say, I don't know, one Bly Street, and they then go and fit out level 4 and, you know, make it all look fancy for different clients and blah, blah, blah. So we then got them sharing project case studies on LinkedIn, okay?
Right.
And they would then be tagging the clients that they were doing the finished project for. So they do these beautiful visuals of, you know, of the completed project. They would tag the clients, they'd tag the interior designers that they may have worked with, or other partners and suppliers. And I mean, this is just one example, but obviously the amplification of that project then goes out to all these different feeds who all have different clients and prospects and their connections, who started to see the good work that this organisation was doing. So then they were reaching out and saying, well, we love what you've done at 1 Bly Street, as an example. You know, is there any way that you could maybe come and work with us? So they just started to really build brand trust, because they could clearly demonstrate the quality of work they were doing. They also were sharing case studies on the people in their organisations. So that really showed that they looked after their staff and that they had top quality talent working in their business. And again, a lot of the work that they pick up has to be done through tender. So the people that they were doing the tenders to would be able to tick off very clearly, okay, they're an employer of choice, they've got great people that work in their organisation, they've got previous experience and track record, and it's all on show. It's all easy for them to find. And they weren't a big business though, Jane. They were small when we started with them. They were like under 10, and they're now sitting at about 40 employees. So,
oh, you know, my gosh.
Yeah. So it was,
wow.
It was really good. And they've got really, and they were niche. They knew we really honed for them what they do, who their target audience was, and what the key objectives were around sharing their stories.
Yeah.
And their people loved it. You know, I mean, there's also something to be said for that. So, you know, I mean, obviously it's great for picking up new work and things like that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But in terms of attracting talent to a business, that's also another win from it, because then people, you know, apprentice, and people were coming to them saying, can we come and work for you? You're working on really cool projects. You obviously look after your staff. You've got a ping pong table out there that looks really fun. You know, like, I mean, it was all that sort of stuff.
Wow, what a great example. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And obviously that's a really good, because my next question is about measurement and you know, the measurements that you've demonstrated there in terms of, well, their business has increased in size, capacity, you know, clearly revenue, reach, exposure, engagement, the whole kit and caboodle, which is awesome. You know, I'm sure it's a question that you've always had as a marketer. It's definitely a question that I always get as a marketer. You know, how do we know when this stuff is working? You know, what are some of the metrics that we can use, you know, to understand whether we're making progress? So what are some of the metrics that you use with yourself or with clients to make sure your LinkedIn stuff's, you know, really working?
Yeah. So the simple wins are, so we run it for clients, and we'll just use that as an example because that's something that these businesses can all do. So every 2 to 3 months, we run what we call a LinkedIn marketing analytics report. And we look at growth of individuals from their connection basis. So that's something very easy for people to measure. So you have 400 connections today. After implementing a LinkedIn strategy, how many connections have you got in 8 weeks or 12 weeks time? Okay, so we can then see growth. We can then actually even look at those connections and see what industry they're from and what their key jobs are, what their job titles are, and that will also make sure that we're hitting the right target in terms of, well, is that the audience that we're looking for? So that's from an individual perspective, okay? Then from a company perspective, we can run a report on the company page. So that's why it's really important to have a designated owner, because I would like to think that each business at the 8-week or 12-week mark actually pull a report where they look at all the different company page posts they've put up, and then they actually look at the analytics around that. So what are the impression rates? What are the click-through rates? And how many comments? And then you can dig a bit further and have a look at, okay, those people that are commenting, what industries are they from and what are their job titles? And is that aligned with our target audience?
That's yeah.
So that's the content analytics. But then the other thing that you can also measure on your company page is your follower demographics. So again, as I said earlier, make sure today you write down how many company page followers you've got. Then in 8 weeks, 12 weeks time, measure it again, but then also dig deeper and see what are the job titles, what are the industries, and you can often also, I mean, not on that report, but through other means, you can look at what companies they're coming from. And if you're starting to see a pattern with companies engaging with your content, I would then be thinking to myself, oh, you know what? We need to talk to the sales or the biz dev guy, and they need to get out and have a chat with those people.
Yes, and convert. Yeah, fantastic. So that's a true demonstration of, yes, looking at the quantity and the numbers, but also making sure that the quality of those numbers is there. And I don't know, you probably haven't found this because you would have always been on message with your content, but have you ever seen a situation where perhaps the quality of connections or followers is not there and you're getting the wrong type and you've had to kind of adjust something to make sure that quality is attained?
Yeah, so what I would say there, I don't necessarily see it from the audience, but what I always say to clients is that it is as important to measure the engagement rates and the analytics around content that is working and content that isn't working. So we know what is resonating and what isn't resonating. So if there are posts that are going up that are falling flat with low engagement, we need to know that, because you know what, we won't do that again, or we won't actually, you know what, we're not going to invest time and energy into creating blog posts like that because no one's actually interested. Yet, you know, these company page posts really worked. So why did that one really work? Oh, well, you know, that was actually really on point in terms of, I don't know, an industry trend or whatever it might be. So the important bit there is look at your company page posts, compare them, see which ones are the highest performing ones and which ones are low, and don't be put off by that. If anything, just take the learning from it that, well, they're not working and why isn't it working, and you know, assess
try something else. Yeah. And I guess that, and if you're getting the wrong people engaging or following, same thing, you know, review the content that you're sharing. One question that I have quickly before wrapping up is, because you keep talking about your team, and it sounds like they're a hugely important part of this process. So there's the business leader, but then it's really important for the team to actually get on and engage with any of the business page posts, the company page posts, but also to be an active member in their own right. How do you find that the business, or what's some recommendations that you can give for that business leader to inspire their team to do that? Because as you said, it's like their personal page, and yes, they're probably going to link it to that business while they're there, but we all know that people move on every, couple of years, 5 years or whatever, and their LinkedIn page stays with them. Do you find that it's easy to get people within the team to kind of cooperate and be as enthusiastic as you'd like them to be, to really kind of help your business amplify that, or that their business amplify the content?
No. So you know what you got to do? Education.
Yes.
Education. The first thing every time I go to a client, I say, this is the strategy, okay? It's not rocket science, but this is the strategy. But it will fall flat if you just implement the strategy and there's a company page owner and they're putting up content every week and that's it. That is not the strategy. The strategy is getting buy-in from the entire company. And then they'll look at me and they'll go, but how will we get Jenny to do that? And I say, we do that through education. You need to run a training session where they understand what the strategy is. They then realise, actually, this isn't just about the corporate brand. This is about me being set up as a subject matter expert. The moment they realise it's as much about them as it is about the brand, they buy in. They buy in.
I love it. Yeah.
When I go to market, I have to sell two things. I sell in the LinkedIn strategy, but the training is so important because I know that for me to be successful with that company, whatever company it is, if the whole team, and I mean from the executive management down to the person that's, not even down to, but every person, every role within the business, and if they aren't all on board, it will not be successful as when they all are on board. And the most important person to buy in is the business owner or the CEO, because they have to lead from the front, because that also gives permission to everybody else in the business that, Sally, who runs the show, wants us to engage, and Sally's actually also being supportive of the strategy because she's celebrating our successes and she's sitting on LinkedIn going, go Gary, that was awesome that you did XYZ, or, I'm so excited to announce the new office manager in the business, because that makes everyone feel loved. It also makes them feel like they are encouraged and have permission to engage with the LinkedIn strategy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And speaking of that education, Luce, tell us where our listeners can find you, because you run some damn fine education. I have taken part in your education. I obviously lap up anything that I see of yours on LinkedIn. You've got so much insight to share. So where can people find you, Luce?
Well, the easiest place to find me is, both on LinkedIn. You'll find me under Lucy Bingle's profile page, or you'll find my company page, Lucy Bingle LinkedIn Marketing Experts. And if you're not there, go to www.lucybingle.com.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much for all of that insight, Lucy. Honestly, I've got so many people that I'm going to spoon feed this episode to. I'm going to go up to their phones and make sure that I press play on this episode, because it's everything they need to hear. So thank you so much for that, Lucy. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jane. As always, lovely chatting to you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of How to Do Marketing featuring Lucy Bingle. What a legend. I know I am completely hooked on using LinkedIn as one of my key marketing tools, and after listening to Luce, I'm sure there will be a few of you who are as well. So if you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do let them know about it. Until next time, happy marketing.
You've been listening to another Morgan Media production.